is E&P Reports, a vodcast from editor and publisher. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And this episode sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide understand the need to accelerate its growth now. Plus, traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way. IQ Audience Plus is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers media companies to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income now with IQ Audience Plus. Visit townnews.com EP today to learn more. And hi, welcome. I'm Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P. This is the 107th episode of E&P Reports. If you're enjoying our vodcast series on various podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple, Google, or what have you, please follow us. If you're watching the video version on our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, smash the bell to the right, and you will get an update each and every time we upload a new episode. I don't have a green wall behind me. You are not green and you are not a wall. I have four very distinguished people here live in Colorado Springs at the America's Newspaper Senior Leadership. Okay, you're not distinguished, you're just average. What do you want me to say, guys? I was asked by Dean to put together a program. I get a free video out of this, at least be entertaining, if you don't mind. We thought we would take a perspective about the industry and see if we can get some predictions, just for 30 minutes of your valuable time, from, how should I say this, from industry leaders. How does that sound? People from different old people? Oh, come on. But more importantly, get an idea of maybe where we're going from different perspectives. Now, I'm not going to introduce you to your backgrounds because everybody seems to know PJ Browning. You come to us from Charleston, South Carolina, and we're honored to have you here. Of course, we also have Heidi Wright I've worked in your markets as well. You are the COO of EO Media Group, Tim Prince, Boone Newspapers, and of course, John Rung, you're with the Shaw Media Group. First question. I live in Tampa Bay, Florida. My hometown newspaper is operated by the Poynter Institute. My hometown newspaper publishes now a print edition twice a week. Print frequency. What is print frequency? Actually, I was chatting a little bit earlier. Owen, are you in the room? Owen from Van Eason? Owen, yes, no? He's not in the room. He's out doing a deal. He was asking me what depicts a daily newspaper. I'm about to issue our 2021 data book. What is a daily newspaper in today's world? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll start with you. How often do you publish now, PJ? What do you predict for the print publication for all of your different properties right now?
Okay, great question. We are still 7 days a week for the Post and Courier and for our other daily in Aiken, South Carolina. We will continue to be a print-based publication, probably, I would say, safely for the next 5 to 7 years. If and when we decide to reduce print days, we would look to go to a Sunday only print. We've looked at all the numbers, and based on that and readership habits and cost analysis, we're still bullish on print and putting in a press. Hopefully it will be live June of this year or June of next year. John,
in Shaw Media, have you decreased print frequency? You have a combination of daily newspapers in some markets and also weeklies in others. The weeklies, I assume, are still publishing print.
That's correct. We have every combination that you could want of frequency, except for 7 day. Our last 7 day bit the dust during COVID. It went down to 6. So we really have 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 day frequency in print.
What do you predict for the future with your company?
Less. I would think 5 and 3 and 1, I think.
That's your prediction. And you're already making those conversations. You are using paywalls right now. You are a metered paywalled operation.
Right.
And do you do a replica version of all your papers?
We do,
as well?
yes.
Okay. Let's move over to Tim from Boone. You have how many newspapers now?
91.
91. I did the math. You're also now in 12 states.
I think that's right.
You have all
Yeah.
shapes, flavors, and sizes, suburban weeklies, community dailies. What is your
Right.
largest frequency newspaper right now for print?
I guess that would probably be Lake Charles, Louisiana. And most of our operations during the pandemic reduced frequency. I probably in the 80% range of our operations changed frequency somehow. I can't tell you one of those instances that did not go well or produce the results that we wanted, which were obviously cash at the end of the month.
Right.
So I guess if you want my prediction, I think we're all going to be weeklies, if not monthlies, at some point. Everybody in the industry. And I know that's a really popular idea, but let me back that up for a second. If you think about preprints, if you think about public notice, if those two things went away today, how many times would you print next week? It would be different, probably. I also, my personal bias, I spell weekly with 2 E's and no A's. So I don't think we've got a negative when we digitally publish as news happens in a format or multiple channels that people prefer, if print is simply a weekly synopsis of the news that caters to a particular audience.
All right, because I know you want to jump in on that for a second, because I know I saw it in your eyes, but we haven't introduced Heidi yet. Heidi, you have a daily in Astoria, correct?
We publish 3 days a week.
3 days a week in Astoria. Do you have no dailies then?
We have the Ben Bulletin. That's a daily.
Okay, and how often does it publish?
It publishes 7 days a week in your inbox, 6 days a week on your driveway. And
I like that.
well, that's what it is. I mean, it's not about the product.
Platform.
It's about the content. And I think the transition needs to happen before we talk about dropping any more print days. You've got to get people to start consuming the e-edition. And I think we've looked past that as an industry too much. I think if we move people towards, like, we stopped publishing a Monday for the bulletin in April of last year. And at that time, we had maybe 2,500 people that were regularly reading the e-edition. On Mondays, that doubled. And so, we're just about 5,000 people now on Mondays, and we're about 15,000 circulation. So, my messaging to them, it's on your driveway 6 days a week. It's in your inbox 7 days a week. Plus, it'll also help us when we have snowpocalypse winters, because we'll have trouble with delivery, no doubt.
PJ, you seem to take issue with Tim's prognostication. I just saw it in your eyes. Like, will you become a weekly, or you said you're all in with print right now, 7 days a week?
Yeah, we are. And maybe to Heidi's point a little bit. So print today is still a very large funnel for us. So that's why we're not interested in cutting that funnel off too early. So we want to get 70% of our print customers digitally inclined and digitally ready. But what we're seeing is there's still room to build out the print funnel with new acquisition on the print side that then will overall feed that 70%. So we still believe that's a very viable funnel for us. I think to Tim's point, on the financial side, we're still building a world without preprints. So when we look at funding our newsroom, it's definitely funding our newsroom through digital acquisition, through philanthropy, and other legs to that stool.
That came up earlier today, and that's something I wanted to discuss with you, Heidi. The 3-legged stool now. The first leg, obviously, is circulation or reader audience revenue. Second leg, advertising revenue. Third leg is innovative ways to fund a newsroom through philanthropy. Where are you at on that right now? I heard you speak to that earlier this morning.
Well, we're in the middle of trying to build out a nonprofit organization for rural journalism in Oregon. So we filed a 501c3 application with the IRS last spring. Still waiting to receive that status. But I do believe in these, especially in these small markets where you've just got maybe an editor and a reporter and one salesperson. And, thank goodness we have generous owners who have been subsidizing those operations for many years to a great extent. We need to build out that third leg. And so we formed a 501c3. We're calling it Fund for Oregon Rural Journalism. And we're hoping that we can, not only find philanthropy to support our journalism, but also help the other small rural papers with, survive and build their business model, because nobody wants to give money to an organization that's a failing business model. And I think there's a lot in the industry that's going on right now with tech stack and analytics and, having, the news that is important to a community, being delivered by the reporters. There's a lot there. So I think if we could help with that, we can help build out that third leg.
John, where is Shaw on any third leg stool revenue right now?
So we've got a grant from Google that allowed us.
That wasn't hard though, because that's all in the family. I'm sorry. Ben Shaw is in charge of the Google News Initiative in Germany. I hope I don't.
Yeah, but it was all above board. There was nothing under the table. Ixnay, no. As far as I know, it was all above board. But we got a grant from Google, and we built out an app in Joliet, Illinois, which is a southwest suburb of Chicago. And so it was focused on diversity. So we've got a toe in the water on that, and open to where that's going. It's you have to kind of look at it, and personally, I think that we're going to win or lose based on subscribers. How many
reader revenue,
basically digital subscribers in the future, and the philanthropy. I have no problem with it. I think you got to be careful who you become encumbered with, but it's interesting, and we're open to it.
Tom, let me dovetail this, Tim, with what we just discussed. Google and Facebook collectively, and I'm trying to come up with a number, but I did some math before this, have thrown about $400 million at this industry in the last year and a half, through grants, through money being funneled through associations, money going here and there. That's like a rounding error to these companies, is it not? I mean, they're making billions and billions and billions of dollars on the clicks that are on the news that our newsrooms generate. PJ, how do you feel about Google, Facebook money? How do you feel about the need or desire for them to pay for the content, which is now going on, correct me if I'm wrong, in Australia and France, where legislation is passed that every click has to compensate back to newsrooms?
Yeah, I want to back up just for 1 second, though. I want to say that our print subscribers, another reason we're hanging on to them is they're really the ones that are giving us our philanthropic monies instead of digital, which has just been interesting. So,
I did not know that.
Yeah, so it's just been interesting. But as far as Google and Facebook, I do believe that the conversation is progressing and that they will pay us for content. I think we've got some really good legislation out there. Google has two different groups. One that is going to fight us on paying us for our content, and the other one that wants to do every kind of lab that is available, and they want to pay for all those labs. And so there is money available for those labs. We certainly have benefited through the news subscriptions lab for Facebook and for Google. But so we do take money from them on that side, but we make it very clear to them that they also owe us. And I think with their latest showcase that's coming out with the panel version, that is an opportunity for us to get money
to start
them.
monetizing.
Mm-hmm.
Heidi, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the most important thing our industry can do is get behind the safe harbor bill that is trying to get pushed through. And I know there's going to be a discussion on that, but I think just being able to get to the table and negotiate as an industry with Google and Facebook is probably going to be the most effective thing that we can do collectively.
Tim?
I think they absolutely should be paying us for our content. I think we are way behind in getting that done. You think about the music industry, the movie industry, you may be paying Spotify for your content, but Spotify is paying the artists and they're paying the musicians, the writer of the song, et cetera, et cetera. We missed that boat entirely as an industry, and shame on us. But we need to figure out some way to fix that now, in my opinion. And I don't believe it's going to be because Facebook and Google decided to be nice guys all of a sudden. I think it's going to be legislation that's going to force it.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but when I managed radio stations, which is my background, we had to do an audit at least twice a year of every song we played in a week and send that off to ASCAP or BMI, and the composer got compensated. And that still exists, I think, for 25 years per song until it becomes public domain. So it's the people who write the music still get compensated in the digital and broadcast world for what they created. However, the stuff we create right now is simply, that's similar to what you were just saying. And your thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, I agree. They should be paying for it. My concern would be, depending on what the legislation is, they're so big, are they going to find a way around it? And I'm not an expert on this, but I think in Australia, they're maybe having some problems with that now. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
That's
Google's
my
fighting
concern.
back, and there's a lot going on. All right, the cover issue of E&P, hopefully you saw it. We are now looking at, okay, it was interesting. Last month, our cover was about the large hedge funds and what was going on with the consolidation. And then we followed it the next month was a story about how local ownership is growing again. And it's amazing what we're seeing now with more and more local ownership coming in. Now, in this room, it's mostly local ownership in a way. We do have some of the bigger companies represented. You're nodding your head on this one. Do you feel good about this? Your prognostications for the future, not just in your market, but markets all over. PJ, what say you?
Yeah, I'm definitely optimistic. More local owners coming into the business, and I think there's certainly with the news desert's been a void, but the newspaper's been the glue to the community for years, and I think as we look at corruption and things going on within the communities, people will surface to make a difference, and so I'm very encouraged by what I'm seeing.
So you're basically saying it's not just about delivering the news; we are that final check on power in a constitutional democracy. Heidi.
Well, we're living that through our acquisition of the Bend Bulletin. A number of local investors stepped up and backed our bid for the paper out of bankruptcy court. And, fortunately, we've been able to pay them back their loans now. But I think what you see is community members care a lot about whether or not the newspaper is going to survive and continue to serve its role.
Tim?
Yeah, I agree. I think the local connection, be that group owned or locally owned, is critically important. And if you're making decisions based on what a 3-ring binder says you should do, I think you're making probably the wrong decisions more times than not. If you're making it based on what your local community needs, you've got a future.
And John?
Yeah, in my experience, the more local the ownership, the better the content in the newspaper is going to be. And in our company, what we're trying to do is balance local ownership with a business model that's sustainable, because sometimes we've seen local owners not adjust to conditions. And so we try to, and it's a tough balance,
It is a tough balance because there's scale in having a large company behind you. But then there's also the bottom line becomes sometimes more relevant than the news that you're doing for the local community. Not that I'm looking directly at you for that, Tim. I know Boone
I'm
does
not
operate
offended.
that way. 2 more topics and we'll be done. All right. There was some discussion this morning about compensation on the sales side, which was good, but let's discuss our industry in general as we speak today. I'm looking at a room that please don't be offended by this, but I don't see a lot of color in this room. I don't see a lot of representation of what our audiences should be. And please don't be offended because who am I to speak at E&P? I mean, we're living in an environment now where some claim that our industry is dead, not because of print versus digital or our delivery systems. They're claiming it because we're not representing our readership enough. We're representing an older era. PJ, what are you doing to truly if you don't mind me, diversity is easy. All you got to do is just pay lots of money with a headhunter and find people of different racial backgrounds or whatever. But inclusion, equity, so we can become part of that. What are you guys doing to try to change that metric? Are you doing that now?
Yeah, I've been in the business 38 years and we've talked about diversity for 38 years.
Right.
So, I can say we have really advanced that cause. It's very difficult, as you guys know. I do think there's got to be a really serious, dedicated effort, whether that's through our colleges, top leadership. We have to make it happen because otherwise it's just a conversation that's going to keep going. Our best case scenario in Charleston is that we hire somebody and we continue to train them up. But the truth be told, if I have somebody of color on my staff, they can go anywhere, anywhere at any pay. So it's got to be a conversation, I think, at college level to get people to even understand why they should be in our business and to really push that effort.
What about you, Heidi?
Well, we're having the same struggles. And, you know, that I think the biggest issue is we're trying to solve it by, oh, let's hire somebody that reflects.
That's
that.
what everybody.
And so it's, you know, it feels like you're just creating a token situation. And I would say that not just with our staffing, but also with our reporting. I think we have to be very careful in how we source stories and make sure we get that voice in the paper through the sources as well. So it's a struggle for us as well. And especially in Bend, which is not a very diverse community. There's a exhibit in at a local cultural center right now. Then one of the catchphrases in Bend is "You're in Bend, be nice." This exhibit is "You're in Bend, be white," and so. I mean, it's spot on the nose of, you know, waking the community up that it is not a very diverse community. So I don't have an answer for it other than it concerns me that we focus on trying to hire who, you know, the token person to be representative. That puts too much pressure on them and it dismisses the real issue.
Tim, where are you at Boone right now? And
I agree with everything that you both have just said. Wish that I had something elegant to add to it, but it is a struggle we all need to accept because Mike, you're right. I was thinking the same thing earlier today. We've got a really white male dominated group.
That hasn't changed.
And it's more diverse than it's been in a long time. I mean, I remember when I first started going to SMPA meetings probably 20 years ago. And I remember thinking that, golly, there are a lot of old white guys in this room. And now I'm one of them.
Right.
And so your perspective changes, but the need doesn't. And the reality is, I mean, to your point, Heidi, about diversity isn't just in hiring, it's in our content. You know, are we telling the stories that are meaningful throughout our community? Are we using the right sources? Are we using the correct word choices? Because that's an evolving preferred pronouns, et cetera. It's a whole different side of operating a business in today's environment. And we need to get better at that.
John, where you at in Shaw?
Like Heidi, our markets, most of our markets don't have a lot of diversity. Some of them do. It is a struggle, I would say right now. And we hear this a lot from people in our local markets, local business owners. The biggest struggle we have right now is getting anybody to work for us and retaining the staff we currently have. That we just did a Zoom conference with a bunch of local business leaders, and it was by far the number one issue they had, hiring people. And it's the same for
hiring anyone
at all. And that is a huge issue right now.
Have you noticed, this is a sidebar, I've stayed in a lot of different hotels in the last 2 months. I'm lucky if I can find a human being to answer a phone. Isn't it amazing, this place? I've been talking to the employees and they just say, we love working here. We love our managers. That's maybe one secret we got to start being, is having these incredible work environments where everybody celebrates where they're working. Because this is the only place where I'm finding in my travels where people are actually working and happy and taking care. But that's just a sidebar. We need to maybe do the same thing. Last question, and then you can have your dessert unless it's already been served. I don't know. New young talent is coming into our industry. I am starting to find them. I mean, do we have Jeremy in the room from Cherry Hill? Are you here? Stand up. This guy is a tech guy. I have shoes older than him. I just interviewed him in a vodcast. You own 27 titles right now, correct? And you're looking for more. And you told me on the vodcast, sir, you're doing it as a commitment to journalism and the community. But you're young, you're different, you're not part of this. You're coming in from the outside. Yeah, well, there is a gentleman in Kansas, Joey Young, one of our 25 under 35, young, forceful entrepreneur who is breaking and just making things happen. There's a husband and wife in Bend, Texas, not your Bend, who came out of New York City. He was a big ad agency executive. She, a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer, they bought a small community newspaper. They're funding the newsroom with a bar and restaurant right in their lobby because it's in the downtown area. New thinking, new ideas. You said it. We've all been around a little bit. I mean, I remember when Paul McCartney was in a band before Wings, right? I mean, my age. So we're advice to the young. We're going to start on this right to someone who's entering this industry. John, what would you say to someone new who's coming in? What got you to your level? What should they focus on? What does the future hold?
Well, I guess I would say they would have a lot of opportunity. And I think what we're finding is on the digital side, more of our staff is becoming editorial, newsroom employees. Like if you went back 15 years ago, maybe it's 25% of our workforce is newsroom. And now if you look, it's pushing down 50%, right? And so that's been our foray to getting younger people in. And I would say you're going to have a lot of opportunity, and it's a very important job, and you're going to have, there's going to be a lot of doors that will open down the road. That would be my advice.
Specific advice to those that are entering our industry today. What should they look for? What should they do, Tim?
Yeah, I would say a handful of things. First thing, you should never work for someone you don't respect.
You should never work for someone you don't respect.
Correct. So the single best advice I can give you is don't deviate from that advice. So you think about working for someone whose ethics don't align with yours, whatever your benchmarks might be. If they are headed down a path that's different than what you foresee for your life, then don't work for them. Don't work for them a minute longer than you have to. Work with someone who aligns with your value system. Second thing would be invest in yourself through training. Even that's just listening to an educational podcast on the way to the work or to the next sales call. And then volunteer. Volunteer for assignments within your organization and within your community. Be a person that makes things happen. And then fifth, I would say, be someone who shares credit. Don't take credit for yourself. When something good happens, feel good in your own self that you helped make that happen, but share the credit. Somebody else probably did more than you did. Make certain they're the ones who get the accolades.
Heidi?
I'm encouraged when I hear young people say, that they aren't confused by all of the news that's out there and all the messaging they get every day, because how many messages are we all bombarded with each day? I'm encouraged that, if you've got a young journalist coming out, especially a small community, if we could put some wings underneath them, put some wind under them, and send them off to school and have them come back and make a commitment to that community, they could be in the front seat driving change in that community down the road. And that's where I get encouraged, is I think, what they care.
Don't listen to the noise.
And don't listen to the noise. And they're smarter than we are about what's real and what's not.
I had the honor and privilege of interviewing the editorial team at the Minneapolis Star-Tribune after their Pulitzer, the ones that they broke the story for the Floyd crisis or whatever you want to call it. And I asked them, how did you keep your head in the game with all the cable news, both sides just blaring at you all the time? And you did this you all had to be, work remotely, and they had to come up with, bulletproof vests to go cover these stories. And they said, what's cable news? Best pull quote I ever heard. We didn't listen to it. We stayed away from it. So this is good advice. Don't get caught up in that echo chamber is what you're saying, that people think is news and media. PJ, the final word for this podcast to this audience.
Just maybe a couple of things. I love young people and I love new ideas, and they bring so much energy to our industry. I would tell them not to be beholden to the past and what we've done. I like the new ideas that they have. I do think mentorships are important. Mentors are great. Sometimes you learn what you should and wouldn't do at the same time. But ultimately, I'm so encouraged, and I would tell them that this business takes passion and it takes energy. And I would hope that they would come to it with a responsibility that it deserves, and that they can make such a difference within their communities. So I would just be really excited to mentor young people.
Can we hear it for our panel? PJ, Heidi, Tim, John,